Hey guys, it's April. I'm going to show you how you can make, or how you should make, your books module timeline. So what I have in front of me are kind of the materials that you're going to need, so make sure you gather them before you start. So you're going to need 2 blank pieces of computer paper. You're going to need some tape, a pencil, a Sharpie or a colored pencil, or any kind of marker. If you're using a Sharpie, make sure that you're using it on a surface that you won't ruin if it bleeds through, or put a couple pieces of paper underneath it. And then of course you need a ruler. So like this one would work, or if you've kind of got like kind of a fancy one like this one would work. But really these are the 5 things that you need to start your timeline. Okay, so first things first, what you're going to want to do is get your 2 pieces of computer paper lined up so that they're not overlapping, because you want to be able to fold this, right? But so that they're just kind of touching. And once you've got it lined up, just take a little piece of Scotch tape and kind of hold down both pieces of paper with one set of fingers, and then with your other set of fingers, just use a piece of Scotch tape, right? So then you can check it by making sure that you can still fold it, right? And it doesn't kind of roll up on itself, okay? So once you've got your pieces of paper down, what I recommend doing is take your pencil and somewhere on here, jot down what your intervals are, okay? So for your years, I'm just gonna go over here, 4,000, right, before Common Era to the year 2000, right? Your interval is for every 1.5 inches, it's going to equal 500 years, okay? And then for your second half, for the years 2000 to 2020, right, for every 1 1/2 inch interval, it's going to equal 10 years, okay? So just so I have a visual of what I'm creating here, and I can go back and I can erase it, okay? So now your next step is go ahead and grab your ruler and just kind of pick where you think the middle of the paper is, right? It doesn't have to be exact. Now I'm gonna do a horizontal timeline here, right? You could also turn your paper, and you could do, you can fold it in half if that makes it easier, right? You could also do a vertical timeline, right? So your line could come this way, and maybe just for the purpose of this might actually be easier no matter what. So what I'm gonna do now is I have my ruler, and I'm just gonna draw a straight line on this side of the paper. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of flip my paper over, and I can kind of see a little bit where where my line was. Right, or I can just unfold it and kind of prop it up against my my computer screen here. And I'm gonna continue my line on the second page. Okay, bingo. So now you can see, right, I have just one long straight line that's going over both sheets of paper, okay? So now my next step is I need to create my intervals. So this is where my ruler is going to be really, really handy in figuring out what my intervals are. So so I know that my interval is not changing, right? Everything is going to be 1.5 inches. So what I can do is I can bring my ruler, and I can start it at the very beginning of the page, and I'm going to make sure that my 0 inch is lined up to where my page begins. And just every 1.5 inches along this line, I'm going to make a mark with my Sharpie, okay? So I'm gonna come here, so here's 1 inch, and there's the 1/2 inch mark, right? So I'm just gonna put a little dot, right? Or a little scratch mark. And then I need to find another 1.5 inches from this mark. So I need to go 1.5 inches from 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna find my other inch. Well, a 1/2 inch, and this 1/2 inch equals 1 inch, and then I need to go to the next 1/2 inch, so it's 3, right? So 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3, right? So there's my next interval. Now from 3, I need to go 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna go to 4.5, okay? And 4.5, right? Plus another 1.5 is gonna be 6. So I'm gonna make my line at 6. And I'm just gonna continue doing this every 1/2 inch for the entire piece of paper. So now I'm gonna go 11.5, okay? And when I reach this part where I need to go to a different page, it's really easy, because I know that this is an equal measure, right? This is 1.5 inches. All I'm gonna do is take my ruler, put the 0 mark at my last 1/2 inch mark, or 1.5 inch mark, and then again I'm going to find 1.5 inches, And I'm going to continue doing this until my whole paper has been marked with intervals. So that's 7.5. So I need to go to 9, and then I need to go to 10.5. Okay. And there we go, right? I have 1.5 intervals, 1.5 inch intervals now going on the entire length of my paper. And if I want to come back in with my marker, I can kind of make these longer, right? I can just draw over them because I know that these are correct. And if you want to get colorful, right, you can do this with another color. That is totally up to you. But I'm just doing this so I can more clearly see where my interval marks are. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to label my time periods. So my first interval is actually at this very beginning of the page, right? That was where I started, right? And my first interval is going to be 400 BCE, right? That's the first date that I'm going to be recording on my timeline. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to start here at the very beginning. And in pencil, I'm going to just write in my dates, right? I'm going to say 4000 BCE. Right, before Common Era. And I know that when I'm working from before Common Era to the current time, I'm going backwards until I reach 0, right? Because this is 4,000 years before year 0, okay? So that means that my next number, my next year here is going to be the year 3500 BCE, because my intervals are in 500 years, right? So every 1.5 inch, it equals 500 years until I get to the year 2000. So then this would mean that this one's going to be 3500, right? And now I'm going 500 years, right, closer to today's present. So I'm going to go down again. So this will be the year 3000. This is the year 2500. This is the year 2000 BCE. Right, now I'm going to 1500, now I'm going to year 1000, now I'm going to year 500 BCE, and on the second page I should get to year 0, right? So as you kind of learned about before, how time used to be kept was according to the Christian religion. So year 0 is technically the year that Jesus was born. So anything that occurred before that is before Jesus's birth, right? This used to be called BC, right? This period of time before Christ. And they've changed it now to not be focused on the Christian religion. So now year 0 remains year 0 because that's how everything has been, that's how everything in time has been tracked, pretty much, you know, for modern human history. But now they call this before the Common Era, right? So BCE stands for before Common Era. So 0 is the start of our Common Era. So once I get to 0 on a timeline, now I start kind of counting up, okay? So I'm going to, again, go up in 500-year increments until I get to the year 2000. Because in the year 2000, my interval is going to change. What amount of time it means between these two intervals is going to change. Okay, so after year 0, I'm going to go year 500, and then I'm going to go year 1000. I'm going to add another 5, so now I would be at year 1500, and another 5 on top of that would put me at year 2000, okay? So again, with my pencil, because this isn't my final draft, I'm just going to make a kind of a line here that's going to show me and show whoever else is seeing my timeline that the years between the intervals are changing at this year 2000, okay? So I'm just going to kind of make a kind of a funky dotted line. Ooh, no, that's not quite straight. Let me make sure that I get it right on, huh? That'd probably be better. So I can use my ruler again here for that, right? So I'm just going to kind of make some lines that's going to kind of go right down through the year 2000, okay? Because what this is indicating is that now my interval is changing. No longer does my 1.5 inch represent 500 years. Now my 1.5 is representing 10 years, right? So 10 years, so if I add 10 years to 2000, here I get 2010. And if I add another 10 years, right, to 2010, I'm going to get 2020, right? Because really we're in 2018, so we're getting real close, right? If I wanted to kind of make a little mark here, I could say, well, this is 2018. This is where we're at right now, okay? So now that I have my timeline done, right, and I have indicated where my intervals are changing, I can think about, okay, where do I want to put the title of my timeline and where do I want to put my key? And that is absolutely 100% up to you. What I recommend you do is mark out some space right now before you put anything on your timeline for your title, right? So I'm just going to kind of say, well, since I already wrote up here, right, this is eventually going to be my title. And I think I'm going to want to put my key. Maybe I'm going to have 2 keys, right? Maybe I'm going to have an interval key up here for this section. And then maybe I'm going to put another key down here in this section. So I'm just going to write key, and I'm doing it very light in pencil so that I can erase it later. And then I for sure want to get my name on here somewhere right away so that when you turn this into me, I know where it is, or I know whose it is. So just for the time being, now granted, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make this look pretty when I add my different things. I'm just going to go ahead and write my name right down here. Okay, because if I was a student like you, right, I'm going to take a picture of this with my phone and I'm going to upload this into our class, and I want to make sure that my name can be seen when I turn it in. Okay, so there is my draft books module timeline, and I am ready to go. So now as we're going through this unit, what you're going to want to do is think about items that you want to add to this timeline. Maybe you want to keep a separate sheet of notes, or maybe what you want to do is as you're going through class, maybe just turn this over, right? Because this is kind of the back side, even though we can see it through here, right? But maybe here I want to keep my notes of events about books, right? And as I learn about things in class, I can just keep a running log here of the events that I think are cool or important, or I think that I should include on my timeline. So I just off the top of my head, 3500 BCE is the first known written tablet, right, in all of human history. It was in Mesopotamia. Okay, and maybe I want to make sure that I maybe write some extra notes about this, right? Like it was cool, cool way to share ideas, first ever, right? And then as I continue to go through class, I'm going to keep taking notes. And then once I kind of have this running list of items that are related to the history of books that I think are really cool, right, I can kind of go through here and I can circle which ones I think are the most important. And then I know, okay, I want to add this one, I want to add this one, and I want to add this one to my timeline. And then all you have to do when you're ready to actually add them is you're just going to flip over here to your timeline. You're going to find that period and you're going to record what you want to record on your timeline, right? So eventually this will be really colorful. You're going to have written things. You might even draw a picture, or maybe you want to print out a picture and you want to include it on your timeline, but you're going to want to make this very interesting, very appealing, and of course you want it to be very legible. So like I can already tell here, sometimes my writing is not all that great. So when I actually do my final timeline, I'm probably going to want to come in here and I'm really going to want to clean this up. And maybe I'll actually use a pen when I'm turning this in for a final. But I'm going to want to make sure that everything that I write is very clear and that it can be read by everybody. Okay? But really, this is just all I'm looking for. I just want to know that you've got your first version of your timeline done, that your intervals are all at 1.5 inches, and that your years are correct, and that you kind of make this this split between your two timelines. Okay? So as always, you guys, if you have any questions, email me or call me or send me a text message. I'm very happy to help with whatever I can. Okay, thanks, guys.